Hey everybody, I decided to do this video because a lot of you guys don't know how to build Scion. Do you build them AD? Do you build them tank? Well, I'm coming in with the argument that you don't build them AD and you don't build him tank, you build him Juggernaut. Now, for those of you out of the loop, a popular thing to do on Scion lately is to build Hullbreaker and Prowler's Claw. Those are two AD items. Why is that? Because a streamer has done that, and I'll go into that in a little bit. For now, we can see Scion is the 19th highest pick. This is Plat Plus, by the way. He's the 19th highest pick with a 49.91% win rate. That's pretty average. That's an average champion doing average things. My argument is that Scion is actually a really good champion, and he's being drastically undervalued because the people playing him are playing him very wrong. I believe the best way to play Scion is with Sunfire, Titanic Hydra, and potentially a Hullbreaker. I think that's the best build on Scion and outperforms anything else. So, without going further into this, real quick, let's remind everyone to like, subscribe, leave a comment based on either feedback on the video. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Do you have a personal anecdote? And just do you think the video is well made? These things help me, they support the channel, and I thank you in advance. Once again though, for those of you out of the loop, why is Scion being played with Prowler's Claw and Hullbreaker lately? Those are AD items, and Scion is popularly, he's called a tank, but I believe he's a Juggernaut, and I'll go into that in a second. So he's being played like this because a popular streamer, the Bounce, is playing him very frequently like that. Now, without going too far into it, he is a good player, he is challenger, he does play Scion, he does have a very high win rate with Scion. However, I believe the Hullbreaker Prowler's Claw build is way difficult to use. Is it more difficult than Tank or Juggernaut? I don't know, but I would say it's more difficult than your average player who just picks up Scion. It's more difficult than they can handle. The second thing is, and I recorded this, I went into his last 20 Scion games. Of them, he went 11 with a Tank Mythic and only 8 with an AD Mythic. So that means the meme is that he gets into Challenger and he primarily plays this AD lethality Scion, but the reality is the Bounce actually plays primarily Tank Scion, but I'll call it Juggernaut Scion. So the question then is, what is going on here? Well, this is a pretty simple thing to answer. When we go into Scion, and I'll go into him right here, we can see, and this is at Plat Plus, by the way, that his most popular rush item is Hullbreaker, which is a 4% win rate disadvantage instead of Sunfire. Sunfire does, it has 2/3 of pick rate, a pretty good pick rate, so it's 30%. We can see 15,000 games played, so I have waited late into the patch to give you guys a good information here, and has a 4% higher win rate. That is a decisive amount more win rate. And we can see right here in second, Hullbreaker has a 54% win rate second, whereas Sunfire has a 51%. So that means that Sunfire and Hullbreaker are both doing good, but the order they have to do good is Sunfire into Hullbreaker, or potentially Titanic Hydra, which I'll get into in a little bit. Going Hullbreaker first, in the vast majority of matchups, is actually doing far inferior. Now, if I go to all ranks, where first item matters less because games go on longer, we can still see Hullbreaker is doing about 3% worse. Sunfire is being picked less. We can see Frostfire is still doing good. Now, all the way down here, and this is a problem, we can see at all ranks, Prowlers has a 9.5% pick rate with a massively low 45% win rate. Nearly 10% of people are practically trolling their games by going Prowler's Claw. That's bad. Even when we go into Plat Plus, we can still see that 8% of people are trolling their games by going Prowler. So what would be the best build on Scion then? What am I arguing for here? I'm arguing the best build on Sunfire. Best build on Scion is Sunfire, Hullbreaker, and Titanic Hydra. Overall, I would say that is his best build. But why? I'll go into each of these items individually. Now, Scion does really good. Kitty is, once again, every time I make a video, Kitty needs attention. Sunfire, and I'll go into this, I'll show you guys this later. Sunfire does its damage. It does 1230 based on level plus 1% bonus health. Scion has a lot of bonus health, a lot. That means that Sunfire and Scion turns into an extremely high damage item, magic damage, that can make it difficult to counter build him. If you go magic resist, he's got his Q and he's got still his auto attacks, and if you go with armor, then he still has his W and his Sunfire. Up second, Hullbreaker and Titanic. Once again on Titanic Hydra, we're seeing the same thing. It scales based on your max health and the other component scales on your bonus health. That means that Scion scales really good with Titanic Hydra, even though Scion might not have the most AD ratios. And let me open this up right here. Even though Scion might not have the most AD ratios, he only has his auto attacks. He's got his Q, which can go up to a 2.25 AD ratio. I think it goes somewhere around a 1.5 if you just get the stun. So his Q's got a decent AD ratio, but that's it. His ultimate can go up to 0.8 AD. It's not great, but when you can get this much AD from Titanic Hydra onto this champion, even this small AD ratio plus your auto attacks can beat the crap out of people. The second thing, and I'll show you this right here, recently his shield was buffed. It now shields for 10 to 14% max health instead of 8 to 12%. That's an additional 2% of your health in a shield. That means that A, that's just a flat buff to building tanky on Scion, getting things like the armor and magic resist on Sunfire, and B, it's a buff to getting items like Titanic Hydra. Even a 2% extra shield, that's meaning 10% extra, or sorry, 10 extra health just from Titanic Hydra, just from the 500 health on Titanic Hydra. That buff gave him 10 more health on every shield. Now, if we look into Sunfire, Sunfire was recently buffed. Instead of giving 35 armor, or instead of giving 30 armor and magic resist, it now gives 35 armor and magic resist. That's 5 more armor. That's 5 more magic resist. In addition to that, its mythic passive gives you 50 more health. That means each time you build an additional item, Sunfire is getting you 50 more health. So Sunfire, as compared to last season, it is reducing more damage and it's giving you more HP compared to last season because of the buff to his W. Although this happened late in the last season, I should say. So for the majority of last season, these healthy items like Sunfire, like Hullbreaker, like Titanic, they give him a lot more tankiness. Now, here's where it gets good. Now, in most of my videos, you guys have probably been noticing a consistent pattern. I say, go ignite, go ignite, go ignite. Well, Sunfire, or I should say Scion, is the only champion here at a mere 1% pick rate for ignite. He does not do good with ignite. He struggles in the early game. He can't really chase people down for a kill, and he loves to farm because remember, Scion's W, let's look back here, Scion's W gives you 4 more permanent HP, and this is how he feeds so much health into his Sunfire and Titanic, by the way. 4 more bonus health whenever he kills an enemy, and 15 for large enemies and champions. So Scion loves to sit in the side lane, he loves to farm up a gigantic amount of HP. Well, this is going back into the Hullbreaker. Scion isn't the best at killing turrets, obviously. He has no way to actually kill turrets. He doesn't have any abilities that hurt turrets, right? So when you look at it from that perspective, him sitting in the side lane can often lead to a situation where if he goes pure tank, that he'll just be sitting there and his opponents can go win the game. Well, if you have Hullbreaker, you deal more damage to turrets, 20% more, and if you have Titanic Hydra, remember, Titanic Hydra, despite the shockwave was removed when you hit a turret, but you still get the damage. That means that Scion is dealing 2% of his bonus health plus 1.5% of his max health, so this hurts turrets. And Hullbreaker gives you 20% more damage, it gives you the cannon minion deals more damage to turrets. So these two items destroy turrets. Sunfire makes you tanky for team fighting, and here's important, remember when you're on the split push, when Hullbreaker gives you that bonus armor and that bonus magic resist, remember Hullbreaker gives you bonus armor and magic resist when you're not near teammates. This means that Scion's gigantic health pool has the armor and magic resist from Sunfire, plus it has the armor and magic resist from Hullbreaker. This makes him bizarrely tanky for also being extraordinarily damaging. When you have the Sunbreaker damage and the Titanic damage and the Hullbreaker damage and the Sunfire and the Hullbreaker resistances, this feeds into a 1-2-3 build that has a lot of synergy with itself and does a lot of effort. They can't leave you on the split push because you're going to massacre turrets, and I'll go into this a little bit more later. Scion's a pretty good team fighter just because by default he's a tank, And if they go ignite and you go teleport, then you can teleport to team fights and they can't, so that makes you the better split pusher, and it just generates this insane advantage. Now obviously the weakness with Sion is its early game. Let's go into his runes though real quick. I'll go to his runes here real quick, and I'll show you there's another thing you can do with Sion. Now obviously we want to go teleport here, but the runes of Sion are pretty obvious as well. So you're gonna want to do something like this, and some people will do this, some people do this, but I want to talk about these ones for majority. Grasping and Dying. Because Sion has so much health, this Grasping and Dying hit, even in the late game, hits really hard. I didn't mean to go shield bash. This, okay, here we go, this is better. Grasping and Dying, even in the late game, will hit hard. It'll give you a decent chunk of health. This is a good rune. It drastically outperforms anything else around it. It is extremely good. It's good early game, mid game, late game, all game. Remember, with the Sunfire, with the Titanic, even if all you did was good in Sunfire into Titanic into tank items, those two items, I'm sure you guys have played an AD carry, these two items, just a Sunfire, just a Titanic, and then 3 pure tank items can allow Sion, with Grasping and Dying, to beat the hell out of an AD carry. From there, demolish. Why? Obliterating turrets. Sion has so much HP, this will obliterate turrets. Second wind, I actually recommend instead of conditioning, but if you're at the low rank where people aren't going to be focusing you too hard, you can easily just pop a conditioning in here. It's not a big issue. Then you have overgrowth, because 3.5% bonus HP on Sion is good. From there, you have magical footwear, approach velocity, or you could do biscuits, approach velocity, or you could do biscuits and boots. You've also got the double damage armor. Some people go 1 damage, 2 armor, depending on your matchup. For skins, Sion actually has a lot of good skins. World Breaker is good. I actually prefer Black Frost. I don't have it on this account though. I probably should have gotten that, but yeah, World Breaker Sion with oh, I'm not using the right chroma. Shoot, did I use the chroma? Maybe I did. Did you? We did. So that's pretty good. That's a pretty cool skin. Now remember, and this is important again, that Demolish rune I just took, that works with the Hullbreaker. Remember, Hullbreaker gives you 20% increased damage to turrets. That includes your Demolish. I'm sure you've all seen those signs in the late game where you can demolish a turret and it'll proc and it'll remove like half the health of the turret in the late game. That's really brutal. Pretty strong. Now going into Sion, there's multiple ways you can play him. Now if you have gone your what do you call it, biscuit delivery, if you have gone biscuit delivery, so I didn't lock in my runes, shit. Well, oh well. If you have locked in your biscuit delivery, you can go door and shield. So you can go door and shield second win. You can do that typical build into a tough matchup. That's a good build. That gets you through the early game. If you haven't gone biscuits, you probably need some sort of mana, so you'll probably want to go a corrupting potion. So that's kind of how I look at it. If I've gone biscuits, I can go door and shield because I can get the mana. If I don't have it, I need to go corrupting potion. His mana in the early game's a bit For maxing your skills, I'll just show you this real quick. I typically go W level 1, but that's a bit greedy for some people. You can go Q at level 1 to just try to hit the melee minions from far away. I can go W at level 1. Your W is a pretty damn big shield at level 1. You can use that and just pop the melee minions with that one, but it's kind of low on cooldown, so you could run the risk of being driven off the minion wave. From there, you just E, so 1 each. Then you're going to max Q first. That's pretty obvious. Q gives you more AD per level, plus the cooldown goes down, so you're going to do more damage, way more damage. The AD ratio goes from 45 to 75. That's a lot of an increase. The cooldown goes down from 10 to 6. Now, some people will, in crazy difficult matchups, you can max W second. The problem is if you max W second, you haven't maxed your Q, so its cooldown is going to be much higher. The damage is going to be significantly lower. A rank 5 Q hits way harder than even a rank 2 Q. Way harder. Whereas a rank 1 W or a rank 2 W isn't that much less squishy than a rank 5 W. It's obviously not as much, but for example, a rank 2 Q will deal like less than half the damage of a rank 5 Q. A rank 2 W shield will shield about 2/3 or more of rank 5W. So there's a big difference between these two. You also have to consider that your W reasonably, you're not getting 2 in a fight, whereas you can very quickly get to 2 or even 3 Qs in a fight. And that's it. then obviously, so something like this. Q first, then W, then E, Alt, Max E, last. It's a good ability. This is another thing a lot of people don't realize. It shreds armor. So if you have your Titanic Hydra and your Hull Breaker and things like that, like if you hit someone with an E and you bash them, you can do a good hunk of damage. And that's basically it for this build. I think this is a really solid build. For your last two items, these ones are a bit more conditional. Now remember, the Sunfire and the Titanic, these are the two I think are core. Okay, these are the two core ones. Hullbreaker it has synergy with your teleport, it has synergy with your demolish, but it's not core. You don't need it to function. Whereas Sunfire and Titanic, I believe, those are his two core items. From there though, you can go Force of Nature. That's a very solid anti-magic item. Frozen Heart's a pretty good anti-physical item. Gargoyle Stoneplate also basically, I mean, how long does it last? 2.5 years, so it's basically Kale ult for 2.5 seconds, which can be impactful. Randuin's Omblin is also pretty good, so I would say those should be the items you target for. Oh, Thornmail. Okay, so yeah, Thornmail. Thornmail is also probably core on Scion. Lots of people can heal against him. So I want to mention one thing that has definitely helped Scion is the nerf to Divine Sunderer. For those of you who want to look at this real quick, this is something that, in my opinion, is helping Scion a lot, is the nerf to Divine Sunderer. When it went down in HP from 400 to 300, it gained 5 damage, but no one gives a shit. This is overall a nerf to Divine Sunderer. This also makes it worse at team fighting. In the past, when Scion had to fight Divine Sunderer users, there wasn't really a good build he could do. He could try to do like Sunfire, Titanic, and Thornmail, and he could try to like reduce their healing while tanking through it. It didn't really work. Now with Divine Sunderer being weaker in team fights, he can out team fight that item a little bit better. I don't think he can split push against it, it's so hot, but he can definitely team fight against it better, and it's helped him out a lot. And basically throughout this whole thing, I think that Scion deserves to be not maybe a top 10. Maybe at the lower ranks he should definitely be a top 10. At the high ranks he should maybe still be a top 10. At Masters Plus maybe not, but he certainly deserves to be better than average. I think this champion is actually doing extremely good. He scales very well right now. This build, again, the Scion build right now scales extremely well. Once you get your Sunfire and your Titanic and your Hullbreaker, you can obliterate turrets so quickly. It's a 3-item massive power spike. You can obliterate turrets. You can beat most people on the split push. Remember, because you're super tanky, your Sunfire will be able to stack up its damage, so you'll be able to stat check a lot of champions that otherwise you might not be able to. Now obviously there are some champions you can't, like again, if they have Blade of the Ruined King, you'll probably need to force a team fight. If they have Divine Sunder, you'll probably have to force a team fight. But it is good, again, if they've got Ignite, you can, and then this is what I was talking about with the Bouse and macro, you can macro your way into a win, because if they leave you alone with a turret for even 5 seconds, you can kill that thing. Your ult also does damage to turrets. It's a bit weird, but trust me, your ult can hurt turrets. It just does. And because when you look at that base damage, 400 to 1200 base damage, particularly if you're threatening to end the game, a lot of people will see Scion and they'll be like, oh, who gives a shit? But if you ult, let's say between these two turrets and you hit both of them, you can clear out their turrets and the next is good. And remember, Scion in his passive gets massive attack speed, which procs your Titanic Hydra on each hit, and also still works on turrets. So there is a lot of ways for Scion to end games with this shenanigans. With the build I mentioned, he can still team fight, he can surprise people. A tank Scion in a team fight with a Titanic Hydra can still obliterate a squishy very quickly by beating them to death. This build is just solid. This is a solid build. I recommend it. I would recommend you go try this build. This is a really good build. So yeah, there you go. Thank you all for watching. Thank you all for being here. Thank you all for subscribing. I hope that you guys can use this build, and I'm gonna be honest, I'm hoping that if you guys know more about just playing the Juggernaut Scion, he is a Juggernaut. He's not a tank, he's not a bruiser, he's something in between. He's something more. He's a Juggernaut. If you play Juggernaut Scion, I promise you will do way better, and I promise you'll have a lot of fun, you'll scale well, and this champion will do you a lot of good at the low ranks. I promise you should try this out. You should tell me how it goes. So thank you all for watching, thank you all for being here, thank you all for liking the stream, all that stuff. I appreciate it, everybody. Special shout out and thank you to my Patreon supporters. For as little as $3, you can continue to support this channel and the videos that I make. The description is in the link. So thank you all for watching. Again, I hope you all have a great rest of your day. Goodbye, everybody.